Hello students, welcome to week 2 for COM 340, Rhetoric and Persuasion. This week we are going to look at and kind of pose the question, what constitutes persuasion? To do this, we are going to look at a number of different things. The week 2 agenda tells us that we are reading through chapters 4 and chapter 5. We are watching a series of videos related to the course assignments this week. One is related to social judgment theory. Another one is related to the use of rhetoric and persuasion, as well as the art of rhetoric. Once we're completed with that, we will complete 2 assignments. We have our discussion board number 2 with our original post deadline of Friday, and our reply posts are due on Sunday. Additionally, TAP assignment number 2 is also due on Sunday. This week we will I plan to have all feedback for TAP assignment number 1 no later than Thursday, so that should give you plenty of time to look through and make any appropriate edits as you move on to the theory application paper number 2, known as TAP number 2. As we move through these assignments, it's important to know that a lot of the central ideas remain the same. The actual questions do vary depending on the theory that we are looking at. However, essentially in these theory applications, I'm asking you and expecting you to provide a very critical review of the theory, how it relates to the areas of persuasion and rhetoric, and as well as looking at it from more of an analytical perspective when you're answering the writing prompts. Specifically, you do need to make sure that your paper is in full APA format. That means that you do need to have a proper cover page, abstract page, reference page. There should be in-text citations so I can clearly see the use of your 2 outside sources aside from the course text. Do know and remember this is a communication course. Communication studies is rooted in the area of social science. It is a social science, so we are expecting us to begin to write more research-oriented papers, and APA format helps us achieve that goal in the nature of how APA papers are constructed and formatted. Your TAPs do need to be at least 2 to 3 pages in length. That does not include the cover page, abstracts, and reference pages. The 2 to 3 pages in length is the actual content. What you address in your writing prompts, that needs to be 2 to 3 pages. This week we are reviewing social judgment theory. This lecture will provide you with some information about social judgment theory. It is covered in the text loosely, and there is a video in Blackboard to also help you have some more insight. So there's many things that you can use, including that video, to count as your outside source. There are 3 things that you need to address in your paper related to social judgment theory. The first question asks you to discuss the central tenet of social judgment theory. Upon what effect is persuasive communication said to have on the central ideas of social judgment theory, and according to this theory, what are the 2 steps involved in attitude change? Second, you will look at the judgmental latitudes, the latitude of acceptance, the latitude of rejection, and the latitude of non-commitment. You're going to explain how these relate to a person's stance on an issue, and how persuasive communication and rhetoric can play a role in that. The third thing you'll do is determine how this theory relates to the ideas of persuasion and rhetoric within our course text. So what have we learned about rhetoric and persuasion within the course text thus far, and how does social judgment theory relate to that? After, please make sure you have your 2 outside sources to support your information. As mentioned in the instruction, you must have a complete APA format, including cover page, abstracts, and text citations and references as well. When you move into discussion number 2, you need to look that we are also looking at social judgment theory again. So we are spending a lot of time on this theory this week. A lot of the cornerstone of our work and our ideas relate to this theory. So that should provide you with some good information to know that perhaps social judgment theory is one of the core concepts within the course, within the nature of persuasive communication, as well as in the nature of rhetoric. Your discussion board number 2 post needs to be at least 300 words. That is due on Friday, and your responses need to be at least 150 words due by Sunday to at least 2 different students. This week, you need to describe social judgment theory's rule of thumb concerning attitude change effects following persuasive communication. What is discrepancy according to this theory? What is the relationship between discrepancy and attitude change? And how does an analysis suggest that different approaches to persuading high and low involvement receivers relate to social judgment theory? So give us a clear overview of how social judgment theory is used within persuasive communication. That's what we're looking for here. I'm also looking for participatory engagement. This is our participatory efforts in the course. This is supposed to model what a discussion would be in an in-class face-to-face setting. So do keep that in mind. So I'm looking for rich, fruitful, constructive, and positive feedback that give other peers some constructive information, as well as some insight as to what your thoughts may be, to get a good dialogue going between one another. One concept I want to highlight from the course text is credibility. It's discussed quite frequently in chapter 4, so I felt that it was noted that we should discuss it as a class within this lecture. Credibility, in terms of looking at it from a persuasive communication factor and from a rhetorical nature, is really referred to as judgments made by a perceiver concerning the behavior of a communicator. So with that in mind, we need to really extend this definition to include not only persons as communicators, but institutions as well. So we're looking at it from an interpersonal as well as a mass communication perspective. Private companies, governmental agencies, and nonprofits also have images and reputations to protect. Thus, credibility for those organizations is of the utmost important. They want to be viewed favorably, just as individuals would want to be viewed favorably. So it should be recognized that in face-to-face encounters, there are really two sources of credibility at stake. That ends up being each party is the interaction simultaneously of a sender and a receiver. So with that, credibility is based on 4 potential areas. Credibility is a receiver-based construct. O'Keefe, one of the leading theorists behind some forms of persuasive credibility and things of that nature, defines receiver-based construct credibility as the recognition that credibility is a receiver-based construct, that it exists within the eye of the beholder. So, for example, a notable person may be credible to one person, while another celebrity may be credible to another. The book gives an example of how people may view Hillary Clinton as highly credible, while not viewing Sarah Palin very credible at all, holds no credibility, and that the roles can reverse. People can view Sarah Palin as highly credible and not Hillary Clinton. So O'Keefe uses this as an example to explain that credibility is really a receiver-based construct. It is based on who and what the person that is receiving the communication stands for. So when we look at it from that perspective, it's important to know that different sources possess different abilities and attributes, and the value assigned to those said abilities and attributes reside in the receiver, not the source. Credibility is essentially a perpetual phenomenon. Second, credibility is referred to as a multidimensional construct. This second feature of credibility is that it's not just one-dimensional, that it's not only made up of one element, but it's a composite of several characteristics that receivers perceive in a source. So credibility is multidimensional. An analogy that may really help kind of clarify this. So imagine if you were trying to define the term athleticism. What does it mean to be athletic? It would be very difficult for you to single out only one thing that makes an individual athletic. Athleticism requires strength, coordination, stamina, quick reflexes, among many other things. So in the same way, credibility isn't just one single quality, but it's a combination of multiple qualities. So it's multidimensional. Credibility, for the third thing, is also a situational and contextual phenomenon. The very qualities that are revered in a communicator in one situation or context may be reveled in another setting. Thus, a persuader's credibility is subject to change as he or she moves from one audience to another or one setting to another. So the president of an organization may be well received when speaking before an audience that's directly related to his content area, and that may and then on the flip side may encounter a hostile reception if they spoke to a group of people that had opposing views. So think about this as you get into that particular idea that credibility is situational and it's contextual and a phenomenon. The last thing is that credibility is dynamic. It changes over time. You can look at this when you look at, politicians' credit approval ratings. They can have high approval ratings, low approval ratings. It's dynamic. This is all based on their credibility. It's important to recognize that to a situation from time to time, a source's credibility can change even during a single speech, sales pitch, or boardroom presentation. Essentially, it's important to know that these 4 areas of credibility really shape who we are as people, and it's more often known as more of a factor analytical approach to credibility. To move into social judgment theory, it's important to know that when we look at it from a communication theory perspective, communication theory is broken up into and divided into 7 different traditions and 7 different contexts. So we look at it from a contextual or tradition-based perspective. If we look at social judgment theory, we know it's a socio-psychological theory, but it's rooted within the socio-psychological tradition of communication theories. But the context, the communication context that it takes place in is within the communicator. So contextually, it fits within looking at the communicator solely because it's a persuasive theory, but the tradition is a socio-psychological perspective. Essentially, social judgment theory tells us that all communication is judged on a latitude of acceptance and rejection. That we have this anchor that's filled with pre-existing knowledge on any subject and is used to judge communication to either accept it and reject it. The acceptance or rejection of communication comes with persuasion. So that's why when we look at this from a communicator perspective, the persuasive communication can sway a peer or one another in one direction based off of what the persuasive communication entails and where their anchor is that holds it in. So if we look at the graph here on this screen, you'll see the latitude of non-commitment. There's 3 degrees of social judgment theory: latitude of rejection, latitude of non-commitment, and latitude of acceptance. The anchor always sets in any communicative environment in the center of the graph, right in the middle of the latitude of non-commitment. The more persuasive a communication can be will allow the person to sway their anchor of knowledge towards latitude of rejection or towards latitude of acceptance. So our thoughts on any given subject is consistently moving from one side of the other in this latitude of acceptance or rejection. Or we land in this idea of latitude of non-commitment. So in the socio-psychological theory, where processes are adapted by environmental changes, motivation and cognition are variables and major models of this social judgment, and in persuasion. And persuasion can sway opinions in one direction or another in any given instance. So if we have an opinion on, we think that Oreos are very tasty, and we've always known them to be, so our latitude is of non-commitment to committing to other Oreo brands. A persuasive commercial or persuasive communication from a peer can allow us to accept a new flavor of Oreos or allow us to reject a new flavor of Oreos. This happens all the time. Social judgment theory is at work in almost every communicative atmosphere, especially from an interpersonal perspective. When you're talking about movies, when you're talking about a new nail polish, a new hairstyle, a new brand of shoes, whatever it may be, your knowledge and what you know to be of movies made by a certain actor is your anchor, and your latitude of accepting the movie or rejecting the movie is based off of the persuasive communication you receive about the new movie created by the actor. So persuasive communication allows you to sway on either side of this idea. So when you create your TAP assignment this week and when you work on your discussion board, keep that in mind. This is something that's used consistently and throughout time. We use credibility a large part in this idea. How credible the communication is that we receive allows the persuasive communication to really take hold. If that person is not very credible, we're going to be more likely to reject what their thoughts are on a movie because we know they always say that about movies related to that actor or whatever it may be, or vice versa. They always like them, so we're not going to go in that particular direction. So keep that in mind. as we work through the assignments this week, please know we are reading chapter 4 and 5. We're watching a series of videos that are related to the course content, as well as completing discussion board number 2, which is due on Friday with replies on Sunday, and the TAP assignment number 2 due on Sunday as well. If you have any questions, let me know. I look forward to interacting with you and pray you all have a blessed week.